Welcome to Michael's Gem Talk on a gemstone that literally got my start in the gemstone business. And it's funny because about 41 years ago, I actually saw amethyst for the very first time in my life. And it hooked me. It really did. It actually convinced me to make gemology and gemstones a career. And this unbelievable, beautiful stone still captures my heart. Matter of fact, back in 1997, I got my start on TV shopping channel here in Canada with this gemstone. In 1998, I appeared on American television for the very first time, and this was the gemstone that actually launched my career. I absolutely love the stone. Going to talk to you about it. Going to take you inside one of the most famous mines where this gemstone is mined and teach you all about it. But you're looking at amethyst here, and you're saying, okay, it is the purple variety of quartz, and it's actually the most expensive member of the quartz family. And you're saying to yourself, or you should be saying to yourself, Michael, why don't I see more amethyst of this caliber in the marketplace? Why don't I see more? Because matter of fact, when I go to a gem show, look, this is in Tucson. You're seeing amethyst geodes everywhere. Now that tent is half the size of a football field. Take a look at this one. These geodes are literally bigger than me. And there's acres of them. And there's tons of it. So you're saying, how is it that you're saying in one breath, it's rare? And then in another breath, there's all these geodes with this beautiful, magnificent color of amethyst on display and being sold as geodes. Well, the reason that these stones and these geodes are not cut into gemstones is because when you shine a light into them, when you look inside the actual raw crystals, they're all cracked. They're really cracked a lot on the inside. If you put them to a cutting wheel, they're going to fall apart. So is it Mother Nature that does it? No. We do it. Man does it. Unfortunately, it has to do with how amethyst forms, but more importantly, where it forms. And where it forms, unfortunately, is very difficult to mine. Now, here I'm showing you some pictures. I'm actually about to go into the famous mines in Brazil. And as you can see here in this wonderful photograph here, this video, I'm about to enter into the mines. And you can see it's at the side of a hill. You got the beautiful grass there and the foliage. And as you go into the hill, the mine, the host rock where the geodes form is basalt. Basalt is one of the hardest rocks known to man. You think granite is hard? Basalt just slices granite like it's butter. Basalt, I mean, and I've seen it in its raw form, you would think it's steel. It's that hard. Matter of fact, it's so hard and tough, it actually forms mostly the bottom of the ocean, so it can hold up the oceans. That's how powerful and how strong basalt is. So to hand mine it, to pick it by hand, to use only drills, it's incredibly time consuming and it's physically exhausting because amethyst doesn't form in veins. It forms in geodes, also known as vools or thugs, known by many, many different names. And a geode almost looks like a bubble. Actually, it started off as a bubble. I want you to go back millions and millions of years as the earth was forming. An amethyst geode started off as a gas bubble. It was an opening. And certain elements, actually silicon oxide got into it with, of course, iron. And it formed these amazing, amazing crystals. So embedded in this entire host rock, in this mountain, you see these spots of these eggs. If you had X-ray vision like Superman, you would see all these eggs embedded in this rock, and inside these eggs, if you crack it open, there's all these jewels, these crystals of beautiful amethyst. Sounds great. How do you get at it? Because the host rock is so tough and so hard to mine through that it's almost impossible. So how do they do it? They use blasting. They use, of course, dynamite, nitroglycerin, high-intensity explosives. It's the only way to economically mine the gemstone. So what they do is they drill holes, they pack it with a powdered nitroglycerin, and they sit there and they pound it in, and I was actually in the mine. And then, of course, they set off the explosion from a safe distance, and the entire mine vibrates. It's really, really quite amazing. You got to be in it to know what I'm talking about. Everything about you shakes. The whole thing is shaking like this, very violently, actually. And the rock falls apart, and they take it out, and they keep going until they get to a geode. Now, how do they know there's a geode? The geode, the rock surrounding the geode will be a slightly different color. When they get to a geode, they drill a hole, they peek into it with a fiber optic light and a camera, and they see, do we see any crystals of amethyst in there? If they do, they then take all the time and effort to hand dig it out. And they chop it by hand, and they finally get it out. And it's really time consuming. At that point, they can't use explosives anymore. When they finally drag these out, and they cut it in half and they look, they then start to inspect the amethyst crystals. And most of them, unfortunately, will be cracked. Why? Because of the vibrations. The earth shook so much, the mine shook so much, that vibration ended up into the crystals itself. It's almost like if you shake your leg, what's going to happen? Your shoe will fly out. The vibration goes to the end. Well, the end of the thug, or the geode, is actually the crystals. So it's those tips of the crystals that absorb all the shock, and they get cracked. So the majority of the really good amethyst ends up as what we call an ornamental stone in geodes. And they ship them all around the world, especially in the Orient, and people love them. Only a small percentage ever ends up as jewelry. Here I am in one of the factories here where they actually cut it. You can see behind me there, you see all the geodes. And here I am pointing into this wonderful, beautiful half geode, which is polished. That was actually going to end up in an office tower in the entranceway in Tokyo. The Japanese love this. Now, the color is unbelievable. But if I were to crack open one of those crystals and try to cut it into jewelry, forget it. This is why I get so excited when I'm able to offer you big amethyst, big, great color that's clean. You can't imagine how much material had to be mined. When I was in that mine, there really was an education of what human beings have to go through just to get it, to only have most of it be destroyed by the process of actually mining it. Many of you will ask, well, Michael, why not just take the time and effort to get these by hand? Because sometimes to get to the next geode, they've got to go through 10, 15 feet of a material that's almost hard to steal. You can't penetrate it. And the amount of work, the exhaustion, you try going like this all day, you can't do it. And even when they use the drills and all this, the drill bits, they break. It's very expensive. Dynamite, nitroglycerin, is very inexpensive. It doesn't require electricity. It just requires the powder and a match, and they light the fuse, or they do it electrically, and bang, it blows. So it's more economical. It's the only way of actually extracting this. So when I get very excited about an amethyst that has amazing color and that's clean and clear, you got to appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. You really do, because it takes such an effort for it to be mined. And amethyst is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful gemstone. And it has so many amazing, amazing properties. Now, what they'll do too, as you can see there in some of the video there, as I was opening up one of the thugs, and you're opening it up and looking at it, you can see there's amethyst, and then there'll be sometimes citrine in there. It's funny, how does citrine come into existence? Citrine was an amethyst, but it was heated. Either it was heated by me, by man, okay, or, as you can see there in the photograph, or you can see there amethyst and citrine, or it was heated by thermal vents. So when this geode formed a gazillion millions and millions of years ago, that part of the earth was hot. So it formed into an amethyst, and then it was exposed to heat. And that amethyst, as it was being heated up, slowly turned into citrine. And it's funny, when I was there, I saw those, like that geode there, citrine amethyst, and sometimes in one crystal, half citrine, half amethyst. Then I saw another one, a geode, where it was actually two geodes. It was almost like two twin bubbles that formed together. the top half was smoky quartz and the bottom was amethyst. You know what causes smoky quartz? Natural Earth radiation. You know, the Earth, what they call background radiation. Right now, if you take a Geiger counter and put it anywhere, you hear that click, 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 click. So if that geode was near granite, which it may have been 90 million years ago, and it got moved, it turned into a smoky. Then that geode got moved over and it formed next to another one. I mean, the Earth is constantly moving in all this. So the geology of how this stuff comes to be is really, really incredible. Now, amethyst, as you know, is purple, okay? And remember how oftentimes I've shown you with my flashlight? I've shown you where it actually has a color change property. As you can see here, I'm showing you the amethyst, right? Straight geode. I'm going to take a light, and I'm going to shine that incandescent light, just like the old Edison bulbs that we used to have, and you see almost a reddish color to it. Then when I switch it to a fluorescent bulb, you know, like kind of have in gas stations, look at that, it turns blue, right? And then if you switch it back, it goes back to a reddish color. A lot of people don't realize that the color purple that you see there really doesn't exist. Now, I know you're saying, how can it not exist? I'm seeing it. It's there. Well, it isn't and it isn't. The human eye perceives the cones and the rods, the way they taught us at GIA is you're seeing red and you're seeing blue. That amethyst is really showing you red and blue at the same time. The human eye combines the red and the blue and it makes purple. And that's what you see. Though really, you're actually seeing two colors at the same time, and it's your human brain that's mixing the colors together. So why does the color shift with the light? Well, visible light is 400 to 700 nanometers. That's the wavelength of light. 400 is blue. If you go that, you get ultraviolet, right? Violet is blue. Blue over here, it's 400. The red is 700. If you go past that, you get infrared. So you got the blue and you got the red. So when I shine a flashlight, incandescent light is mostly red. So basically, you're just seeing the red color because it's blinding all the blue. Then when I reverse it and I show you the fluorescent light, what you're actually seeing is the blue. So it's separating it. It's like I'm untricking your eye. So that's why you see the color change. And the same thing goes for alexandrite. It's just reacting differently to the different wavelengths of light. But in the case of amethyst, we call it basically a color shift property because it's just shifting from one color to another, and your human eye is just combining both colors together. And that really is the story of amethyst, and that's why it can look sometimes more purpley, more reddish, or if you go outside on a very sunny day, it'll look more blue. And the good amethyst, especially the amethyst that I like to get from either, Namibia, or I get it from Uruguay, has amethyst just as good, or you get it from Amethyst to various places in the world. That's why you see that color shifting property. And the deeper color it is, the more of it you're going to see. Now, amethyst is quartz. Okay, it is 7 on the hardness scale. Silicon oxide is the actual chemical composition, and it is the most abundant mineral in the world. Quartz is, but quartz is an allochromatic stone, so in its purest form, it's just white, it's clear like a piece of glass. You can see right through it. But when it is subjected to iron, in the right conditions, it forms this amazing, beautiful purple color. It's a stunning stone. It's a stone you can wear all the time. I love it. What's great about it is that because it's quartz, it does come in larger sizes. And the reason is that it doesn't move. Whenever a gem forms in one place and it ends up somewhere else, it gets smaller because as it's moving in the earth, it gets hit. And it kind of gets knocked around and it gets smaller. Quartz forms inside of a protective bubble. It's an egg. So the size of that amethyst crystal today is the same size that it was when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. It never changed. That's why we can find such big quartz crystals. That's why we don't get big diamonds, because they have to travel the longest distance of any gemstone to get to the surface of the earth. And by the time they get here, sometimes they're 1/100th of their original size. That's why we don't get big diamonds. But the story of amethyst is amazing. And you've learned something that a lot of people don't even realize. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I studied at GIA, I didn't even know this. It's only when I began to go to the gem mines, speak to the miners, and they explained to me, this is what happens. Because I said, look at all those geodes. Why don't you cut those stones? They go, look at them. They're cracked. How do they crack? The blasting. If we don't blast, we can't get them. If they didn't blast, an amethyst stone would cost you like the price of a ruble. You wouldn't pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for an amethyst stone. Nobody would. That's why they have to use this technique, and unfortunately, a lot of it gets damaged. But fortunately, like I said, quartz is so plentiful in the earth that these amethyst mines are big. So they can afford to lose 90+% of the product coming out of the mine to damage due to mining, so they can provide us with affordable amethyst. So we're very, very fortunate that way. But it's not just a birthstone for February, it's the stone that launched my career. Maybe it'll be one of your first purchases, but amethyst is an unbelievable gemstone. It gets its name, by the way, from the Greek word amethystos, which means the color of wine. It does not prevent drunkenness. That's where the rumor started, because the Greeks named it after wine, and then somebody says, oh, they did that because if I have amethyst, I won't get drunk. No, it was a drunk guy that came up with that, because if you drink, you're going to get drunk eventually. Amethyst will not prevent drunkenness. It's just the Greeks name it after the color of wine, amethystos. And that is the history of amethyst. And now you know why. When you buy amethyst, why it's so difficult to find these deep, dark, rich stones that are clean and clear, because they form in basalt. Not just any basalt that's 5% water content. That's very key. If it doesn't have that 5% water content, it will not produce gemstones. And of course, it comes from various countries in the world. Uruguay, Brazil, very, very important, and Africa. I would say those are the major centers for amethyst. Though it does occur in other places like Canada, other places like the United States, but the quality is so-so. The best product comes from Africa, or it comes from Brazil, or Uruguay, or Bolivia, that type of area. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed our talk on amethyst. I hope I taught you something, because it's the stone that got me started in my career. Maybe it'll be the stone that gets you started on your beautiful journey of loving and appreciating natural jewelry.